Hello, just a quick little thing before getting to the actual episode that I recorded with Slade and whatnot. Just wanted to throw out there, drop a couple language gets a little dicey here and there. So I know some of you listen to at work and stuff like that, but I wanted to give you a heads up. So yeah, heads up, 7 Up, all that sort of fun jazz. So enjoy. Thanks for watching, listening, and have a good day. Hello, and welcome to episode 64th of Rambling Weekly. Pow! The Nintendo 64 bits here in style. And, yeah, we're going to be talking about Purpose, or, purpose. Not porpoises, but purpose for its own sake. Should a story...
It's not too late to change the topic to porpoises.
I don't really have much to say. I don't really know too much about the porpoise.
It'll be a short episode. That's fine.
Nothing wrong with that.
People
right?
are busy.
yeah. But yeah, Slade and I. Welcome back, Slade.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to talk about should a story have purpose? We're going to dive into that and try to answer the big questions in 30 seconds or less. So let's go. Welcome back. The opening tune there is Shinko Hakanaki. Oh, I'm totally fucking this up. Hakanaki Ningen no Tameni. Faith is for the transient people. Shinko Hakanaki Ningen no Tameni. Yeah, gracious. That is. Hakanaki is not a word I usually say very often, or ever, really. But neither is...
Me neither.
Yeah, transient.
If you can believe it.
Gracious. Yeah, so this is Toho music. This is from the Flowers for Patchouli album. This is done by Dark Phoenix, which is a combination of Phoenix Project. I can't remember what other name Hinekawa went under. And Kumicho, I want to say that, man, my doujinshi knowledge escapes me a little bit, but I do remember you being a part of Phoenix Project, because I used the one that I know. Anyways, that tune is very, very swell, and this whole album is very swell. So, any comments you'd like to add to it there, Slade?
Oh, I like it. Last episode, I talked about how much I love my piano, and this is... the piano is trades off to the guitar. It's like a Beauty and the Beast kind of thing. They go back and forth. It's nice.
It is. It's not call and response, but that was something I do really like in the album. Is there's these moments where there's a couple. I think one of the other tunes in particular that have it starts going heavy, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're gonna let off the gas a little bit for a moment, and you're like,
it breathes.
Yeah. It's like, okay, time to go, time to roll. But it's a wonderful album. When did this album say it came out? Let's see, 2010. Good Lord.
And I know very little about this franchise outside of the fan-made Metroidvania and the Girls and Bullets. Pretty much. I've been getting more into shooters lately, so I should probably play a couple of those.
Yeah, maybe it's something you might appreciate. I know the only things I really know about it, more so stem from, if I remember correctly, and maybe this is apocryphal, but Zune, who made, who birthed Toho, from what I recall hearing, is that he made the whole series and everything specifically because he wanted to get his music out there.
That's what I've heard.
So, and to me, that is so cool because there's, what is that guy's name? It kind of makes me think of, and Matt's going to strangle me because I don't remember his name. Is it Gotanda? Is he Tri-Ace? Is he the one that helped set up Tri-Ace?
I honestly do not know. I love that company, but I have no clue who the actual creators involved are.
Well, so you know how it became a thing because
It was
Yoshihara
a spin-off of
Gotanda,
Wolf Team. I
right?
knew that, but
Because they made Gotanda made Tales of Fantasia and
Right.
is it Namco Bandai? Is that the one that
yeah,
they're like, this is cute and all, but we're going to change some of the names? And he's like, all right, well, I'm leaving and I'm taking two of my bros with me.
yeah,
Peace. And then they made Star Ocean.
yeah. And Motoi Sakuraba is a real like he's like the arms dealer in this situation because he plays both sides. It just made him rich.
Right.
'Cause he's just like, I'm gonna make music for these Tales games and for these Star Ocean games. So he's the Drebin here.
He's the Drebin. Oh my god. I never would have ever. I never would have put Motoi Sakuraba and Drebin. That's
There's a Metal Gear Solid 4 reference for you 15 years later.
oh boy.
Nobody's talking about that anymore.
No, outside of Steak Bentley's video. It's just a great video. That's a really I like Steak's videos.
I haven't seen it.
I'll link you to it. He's done a few of them. He did a really good Cowboy Bebop one as well. And then,
Okay.
the ping pong, did the ping pong show as well as or anime, and then
Oh, I like that show a whole lot.
okay, so you might appreciate his videos are really good. They're very infrequent, but he did. I think he did like transition work for the what's that guy's name? Mandalorian, or what's the Mandalore Gaming or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did the last video he did. He got credited for doing like screen transition work and stuff for him. So,
Oh, that's cool. He's
yeah,
big.
He's pretty. Oh yeah. Mandalore is pretty big, and then Stakes takes like that really kind of offshoot, kind of cool, interesting guy who just sort of does stuff, and then he's like, I'm just doing this to do this. Thanks, guys. Don't need your
Right.
parasocial nonsense.
Oh, yeah, those are always the best people.
But yeah, I'll send you a link of that. I'll make a note. Link Steak to Slade, and I'll be like, what the fuck does this even mean? All right, okay. But yeah, so how you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's pretty much the huge over here.
The huge.
Had our holiday. Had Friday off. I did not know I was having Friday off until Thursday.
Hey,
So that's cool. Those are always the best days off, the surprise ones. So a little
that's a
bit of a
nice-
long weekend there.
that's a nice surprise. I know last week for work for me was I had some pretty short days
Yeah.
doing deliveries and stuff, and I was like, I'm not really complaining.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I could, but sometimes.
But why?
Right? Sometimes you just need the easy days. Give
Yeah.
yourself the easy victories.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. How about you?
I'm doing all right. I need to get a new planner because I had this like weekly calendar thing that is down to its last week. I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
Well, it wasn't. I write in the dates, so it's not like
Yeah.
it was. Oh, all of a sudden it's it's like I've had this
Right.
from Japan or something. But yeah, it's down to its last two weeks. Like I'm like, I need to buy a new one because I need to. I've kind of drifted away from having my weekly plans of stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I've noticed I've slacked on certain things. Like I really haven't read too much into Moss Flower outside of the burst that I did after finishing up reading the Redwall book, so I need to get back into that. I've been pretty good on editing stuff. I'm going to look it up real quick because I have it on Google Drive, because that's the kind of dork that I am. Or I'm not. Where are the... maybe not.
I wish I could be the kind of guy who can organize. I've always wanted to be that guy who's like, oh, Monday I'm going to do this, and Tuesday I'm going to do this, but my brain doesn't like it. I need the chaos. Even if I'm going to be productive, I do need a certain amount of chaos.
Well, and I'm good with having some spontaneity, but I need the regimented... Why am I clicking on that? No, Trussler, wrong one. I need that regimented aspect when it comes to writing or doing that sort of thing, because otherwise I'll just be like, oh, whatever. So I'm currently in the process of editing. Before we even got into the call, that's kind of why I was a slight bit late. And I was like, oh, shoot, it's already time. I'm in the middle of editing chapter 26. Now, this is like a soft edit to where I'm making notes to be like, okay, add stuff here, tweak this paragraph here, get rid of this, that sort of thing.
Right.
Chapter 26, there's 36 chapters.
Oh, okay.
So I'm over 2/3 of the way through, and I know it's probably going to be 37 chapters. I know there's one that I'm going to kind of splinter into two. So I'm nearly done with that sort of thing, which for me is probably the harder thing to do, because once I get done with that, I'm pretty good about, oh, okay, and then I can kind of flesh it out pretty easily, quote unquote.
Right.
compared to what it can be for me. The one thing I'm kind of lamenting, I know I have to get rid of, are the titles for my chapters.
Okay.
Like, I love chapter titles, but I know I'm looking at some of them and I'm like, I cannot. I can't. It's not like they're spoilerish, but it's just like, I just want to have like a page at the end of the book and be like, these are what the chapter title would be if I could put these in here. I just want to do... Because it's actually the chapter I'm on right now, the title for it just works so perfectly well. I'm like, God, I want to use it. So
why can't you use it? Like, use these titles?
Part of it, I think, is because for some people it almost can give the game away.
Okay.
So, I feel like I am cheeky and sneaky and puckish enough that I can get away with it. So, like, for example, the chapter title for this has like 4 different meanings to it. And I just like the layering of it, but it's like... people might see that and just kind of be like, oh, okay, whatever. But I don't know.
People are really weird about spoilers. Like, they kind of get upset even at the slightest possible hint.
Yeah,
which is strange.
I know I can get pretty... Well, because what it does is it'll start to color your opinion on something even before, like, you watch a movie and you're like, oh my goodness, that movie was amazing. Okay, the bar has now been set.
Right.
And what your amazing is versus what my amazing is, probably not the same. And that's not the...
Oh, yeah.
Degradate one or the other. It's just, we just have different tastes.
Well, that's why everyone else's opinion is guilty until proven innocent. As fucked up as that sounds, it's like, I just do not... I trust very few people to understand my taste. Because usually, oh man, you're gonna love it, translates to, I loved it. Like, that's usually what it means.
That's fair. Like, I will say this, Sushi is really good about... I would say at least, if not 9 times out of 10, 8.5 times out of 10. or 17 out of 20 of being like, you'll probably like this, and he's
Right.
usually pretty good about it when it comes to how I see things. I will be honest, I'm terrible at that. Like
Okay.
I usually am like, I like it. I like a lot of things that people really don't have an interest in, so I'm not gonna.
Right.
It's really hard for me to be like, oh yeah, you'll really enjoy this.
I think we all have maybe like one or two people who know us well enough and are aware of our taste enough to be able to do that, even if not for everything, and for very specific things. Like my younger brother, for instance, one of them. If he recommends me a hip hop album, for instance, I'm probably gonna like it. We have very similar taste.
Okay.
Often, or another brother, if he says, "Hey, this anime, like this old OVA or something like that, this is very good," probably pretty good chance I'm gonna enjoy it. But there are some people I know who are just like, "Oh man, you're gonna love it," when they're overzealous. That's when it's like, okay, I am. I don't know. I almost feel like at that point I start picking through it with a fine tooth comb. Some of these people, and I'm like, no, I don't like that, and I don't like that, and I don't like that. And I mean, I don't exactly love that about myself, but it's almost like out of spite, I'm gonna find things
It'd be
wrong
like
with
you've
it.
challenged the wrong
Yeah.
person.
Oh, will I? Will I like it? I will see about that.
See, I know I used to be like that to some degree. And it'd be like, oh, you don't know me. Like,
Yeah,
I know I
it's my
used.
youthful arrogance.
Now it's just like, really, I just have a very odd. I mean, like the music thing. The music thing really throws people for a loop. Just because I don't like lyrics don't really get to me. I'm like a lyrics. I'm not a lyrical guy
Yeah,
at all, which is kind of odd because to some degree because I write and I have this weird relationship with words. But
oh, I listen to that weekly. I didn't
yeah.
comment, but I listened to it.
Oh no. but but the book I'm working on now, like the main character wants to be like a traveling bard. So
Okay.
I've had to make like songs and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
that must
just
have been challenging.
to a degree. I mean, you know, I mean, I've kind of dabble in bleeps and bloops, so that works. And you can kind of get away with it just because I do like. It's not that I don't like music with words. It's just they
Right.
don't stick in my head. Like I
Yeah.
just better off trying to throw a stick of butter and having it kind of stay against a wall. It's just kind of like I don't. It just does not. They don't. It doesn't stick in my head. But I like Irish folk music and stuff like that. So that was inspiration. I love the Redwall series. There's a lot of different little songs and stuff in them. So that's kind of my nod of appreciation and love for that sort of stuff. So
Right.
I can at least pull from experiences, even if they're not. How would you say? Even if they're not something that's really at the forefront of my mind.
Right.
So it's just like, okay, all right. Are they as good? Probably not.
My favorite band for the longest time was Motorhead, and a lot of their songs are just kind of a bunch of different good sounding phrases strung together, and it's like I don't know what half of this means, but I'm like he sure is saying stuff, and I'm sure putting my fist up and saying fuck yeah while he's doing it. So like I don't know. I mean, there's songs that are explicitly about things, but then he'll just say a bunch of shit, and I'm like, yeah, sure, man.
I get you.
This made sense to you, I bet. But to me, it's just a headbanging fodder. I don't know.
No, I get you. Yeah, I mean, especially Motorhead. Motorhead can really go pretty hard at times. Good old double bass.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Gracious. Yeah, yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just like, okay, cool. I guess with me, it's just like that. It's more of the melodic sense of things really sticks to me a lot better. So I'm like, oh yeah, melody, cool. I can't really replicate this very well, but I certainly like it.
I mean, I've found that I actually believe you have a, not to embarrass you.
Oh
I
no.
found that you have a bit of that you have a gift for melody, and the it's something that I tend to point out when you post your music. I think that I do enjoy the melodies you've come up with, and honestly, that's probably the thing that I enjoy the most in music as well.
Okay.
Is melody. I mean, it's the reason why I think that I can listen to and enjoy music from other languages just as easily as I can music that's in English, which is not something that a lot of people I know seem to be able to do.
Yeah,
That or it just gets put into the weird camp.
you've shared some. I don't want to say out there, but some very different.
It's out there.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, but I think it's because of that melody sort of tie. I'm like, okay, cool. It's not too far out there for me. Like I love the. I think I might have mentioned it to you, even though this isn't nearly as out there as some of the stuff you shared with me. But the Christopher Tin albums. He's the guy who did the composition for Baba Yetu.
Oh yes,
Yeah, so like,
Civilization 4.
yep. He has 3 albums. I think the fourth one
Yeah,
just came out.
you've sent me some of that when we were talking the one time. And I love that stuff. That I think it all just kind of gets thrown into the category of world music or whatever.
Right.
But I enjoy that.
Oh no, he's got 4 now. I
Okay.
have 3 of them. The Drop That Contains the World, and then the Calling All Dawns, which are the first 2, and then the third one was the History of Flight. So it was different music of just kind of going through a man's fight to learn to fly and then get to the moon and all that kind of stuff. One of them's a pretty sweet tune that's like in line with, I think, World War One or World War Two. It's
Okay.
pretty beastly. And then he just came out with a new one, and it's about birds. And I'm like, oh, I still haven't listened to it yet, but I really want to
Got
get
an
it.
eclectic taste.
Right.
All his own.
Yeah, he's pretty cool composer. But yeah, no, so that's good old music. I don't know it very well, but I certainly like to talk about
Pretty good. People should try it sometime if they haven't. That music.
that music thing. Well, that's the hard thing too, is that, you know, because of my, I don't want to say disdain, but just uncare for lyrics,
Okay.
I tend to, and I think I commented on, I don't know if it was like B. Clark or somebody else made a comment about it. I think it was B. Clark, but I tend to really either misattribute or be on the mark where some people will value lyrics a whole lot more. Like that's like their bread and butter, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I see what the lyrics are, but I mean, is this how you feeling? Or,
Right.
you know, like, you know, and I feel like 4 times out of 5, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this might have been the mood they were at least in, but then I might have misattributed it too far, where it's like, this is kind of the same mindset they have, you know. But gracious. Oh, speaking of which, I don't think I might have mentioned it in one, but we beat Synthetic there.
Yeah, we did.
Talked
Never
about
thought I'd see the day. I think I said that like 15 times after we did it. I said, I never thought we'd do that.
right. We it was kind of funny because we're like, oh, we should do it, and then we played it, and it had been a couple weeks at least, and then all of a sudden we're like, hey, let's do it, and then we're like, oh, this is not going very well, and then we ended up getting on that run.
It's always the runs that you think are throwaway that you beat these things, because I'm just like, it's just me and my nail gun. I'm not getting any good drops at all for as far as items go. But this this holy nail gun.
The holy nail
That
gun.
thing, that thing was great. It just regenerates nails. It just they just shoot everywhere, make a big mess of everyone, including you sometimes. Sorry,
That's all right.
they're going everywhere.
Yeah, we had. I think there was one spot we had it got a little dicey for us, but we were pretty. It was, if not, we were treading water a lot, and then there were a couple dips where it was like questions.
Yeah. Well, I managed to. I think one time we were just being chased, and I just said, "Oh man, screw it," and I just ducked into like a shelving unit or whatever it is. I don't even know. It was like this very tight area where I just kind of camped in there and just, shot a bunch of nails everywhere. No one could get to me somehow. Maybe that's the strat.
It worked.
It did.
I know I was being chased all that time, and that was. It's like, thank God for Double Dash, because I was like, oh no, oh boy, oh great, all right, put down a turret, run away, keep running, turret, run.
Yeah, it was getting scary.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, now we just gotta wait until Synthetic 2 gets out of early access.
Is it still in early access?
Yeah, it is. I don't know how close to finished it is, but it looks neat.
I was gonna say I haven't even looked at it really, so I'm very curious to see what they would do to like warrant a sequel, if that makes sense. Not to say that they.
No, I get what you mean.
Right, just to see what they do differently, if they do much differently, or if they're just like sort of similar, but we're gonna add some flourishes.
Yeah, well, the point of view has actually changed. It's like a little instead of being not top down. I don't want to say isometric either, but is it isometric? Is that what you call like the synthetic one?
I mean,
because I always thought isometric was like kind of like tilted off to like Final Fantasy Tactics kind of thing, like off to that way. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
No, that's fair, because it's more straightforward as opposed to
right
at points or angles and stuff.
But this one's more. I think you're a little more down into the shit.
Oh,
you're like, it's not like a third-person shooter or anything like that. Like, it's not like Resident Evil, but maybe a little closer of a view.
Resident Evil's a third-person shooter.
A little more, yeah.
No horror elements. It's shooter now.
Well, it was for a while. 5 and 6, definitely more of a third-person shooter. But
4 certainly helped with that.
Oh yes.
Well, I didn't realize that they switched the view so much.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It might not be quite as extreme as I'm making it out to be, but you're a little lower and it's tilted a bit more.
Are you telling lies on this podcast?
It's a little more. Yeah, I know. You come lynch me. Looks a little more 3D as opposed to pre-rendered, but yeah, okay. So that should be neat.
Huh. Yeah, I wonder when it'll... Because, once it does get out, I'll probably end up buying it, which is, I guess, unfair. Saying I should probably support them, saying I did really enjoy the first one, but...
That's fine.
I mean...
Well, you should only have to wait. It should be out. It'll either be out tomorrow or the end of eternity. One of those two, I'm sure, because that's how those early access things go.
Right. I'm trying to think, what comes out this week? There's something that comes out this week, doesn't there? Oh,
I have no clue.
I don't know. I know. I linked it in the Discord. The Sea of Stars.
Oh yes,
comes out August 23rd or something. So that's. But I could have swore something comes out this week that I'm like my brain's farting on.
That game looked good.
It does look good.
Chrono Trigger, but you can jump around on stuff.
Right.
This one seems to be, not that every game has to be like another game, but this one seems the closest to actually cashing the check of being like a really, really solid Chrono Trigger, like, because people have been trying to make those for like, I don't know, like 30 years or whatever, and it just hasn't really worked out. Even when Square Enix has tried to do it. Like, I Am Setsuna, it was fine. I didn't finish it. I played enough of it, I think. Like, it was okay.
Yeah, I didn't even play that.
Yeah, very few people did, and the ones who did were not super keen on it. I thought it was one of those games where like it was all right. I might go back to it at some point, but I wasn't super compelled. It was like one of those where you're like a few hours in and you're like, all right, I see what you're doing here.
From what I recall, wasn't the big sticking point was that it was like 49.99 when it came out or something?
Oh
They were
yeah,
like,
it was
absolutely not.
closer to premium, 40 or 50, one of the two.
Mm, I think that's really the only thing I remember when that game got released was people being like, no, not
Yeah,
paying that.
the big problem outside of the price was that people seemed to think it was a little too monotone, both in its soundtrack, which was it has a soundtrack that's like purely piano.
Okay.
That's it. And I actually kind of like it because it almost feels like someone's playing alongside you, like as you're going through the game. Like
Huh.
and they're just playing a different song when you get into a different area or a fight or wherever. And it was also it takes place in like a continent or whatever country that's covered in snow.
Mm,
So it's like just a lot of white, a lot
gotcha.
of white,
Gotcha.
and a soundtrack that they people didn't think was varied enough. So
Yeah, those are two stepping stones that are really hard. Like when
mhm.
people have, like, I mean, that's presentation and music.
Yeah,
That's some very wishy washy ground to
right.
try to stand on.
And maybe not so much presentation anymore as much as back in the PS1 days or whatever, but music was definitely if your RPG does not have good music or what people perceive to be good music, like I said, I thought it was fine. Uh, that's a problem.
Hmm.
That's like half the game for some people.
Well, and I'm kind of in the camp of that to some
Hmm.
degree. Like I can tolerate a not so good game
Hmm.
if the music is enjoyable to me. But if it's, you know, Castlevania Adventure
Oh boy.
and the music isn't really jiving with me,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that I am basically controlling a molasses monster through
Yeah, that game is some ass.
all different shades of it.
Yeah, it's not good. I don't know. I really like Belmont's Revenge. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it's just because like one was so bad that you could have given me anything, and I'd have been like, yeah, man, it's the Mega Man X8 effect. It's like after the dumpster fire that was seven, I would have taken a kick in the head by a mule and would have given you a thumbs up. And been like, yeah, this is you could name this mule Mega Man X8 and let it kick me in the head, and it would have been better than
Well,
an
yeah,
X7.
totally.
Yeah, but I don't know. I do think, jokes aside, it's a legitimately good Castlevania.
Hmm.
That Castlevania 2 on the Game Boy. But the Game Boy Color one that comes after it that wasn't even in the compilation, that's name I forget, is back to kind of not as bad as the first one, but kind of middling.
Oh, I'm not familiar with.
Is it Castlevania Legends or something like that? This
Okay.
is good. This is good radio right here.
Yeah.
Having to look things up on the fly.
Eh, I'm not.
Castlevania GBC. Let's see what that is.
Yeah, the only things I remember from the Game Boy Color is I didn't really have one.
Hmm.
So like the games that I ended up playing were the ones well after the fact. I think I've reviewed half of them with Sushi, the Ghost Babel,
Oh, yes.
and then the Lufia game, The Legend Returns.
Oh, okay.
That was a pretty primo game. I enjoy that game. I didn't review that one with Sushi, but that's all right. I think I did
Right.
a Let's Play of that eons ago. And then let's see, what other what other ones were there? Oh, Star Ocean, Blue Sphere.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think your video about that kind of convinced me not to play it. I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I need that in my life.
Yeah, it's neat. It's
Yeah.
but is neat really enough to?
Yeah. Yeah. So this Castlevania game, I was wrong about it being a Game Boy Color game.
Okay.
It is just called Castlevania Legends,
Hmm.
and it stars Sonia Belmont,
Oh, okay.
which is a Lady Belmont. I don't know if we've gotten another one of those. Um, but yeah, it's like I said, better than one, not as good as two. And you either have to, I'm assuming, pay exorbitant prices or steal it. One of those two things.
I think we
If you
call
want
that
to play.
sailing the high seas
Oh
here.
yeah, 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 yeah. Sailing the you have to yo ho ho and whatnot. You have to do that because you can't get that legally outside of buying a cartridge that was manufactured like 23 years ago or something.
That is how they go about things.
And we're running out of Castlevania collections to put it on. I mean, that collection of the three Game Boy Advance games, they just shoved Dracula X in there because they didn't know where else to put it.
Oh,
And like,
seriously.
where does this go? Like, who knows?
Oof. Yeah, and that's why. Why is that even there, though?
But you could have put that in a collection with Rondo and Symphony of the Night, but they don't seem
It's
to be wanting to release those anywhere. So,
Well, but that's the thing, though. Is there really a difference between Rondo and X to warrant X to be released as opposed to getting Rondo out? Or is this their way of saying, well, you're not getting Rondo, so.
I think there's enough of a difference, uh, but I don't know, it's not as good as
Definitely
Rondo.
not.
I mean, it's
Definitely not.
different, but it's the final boss fight is just, oh my God, it's like being kicked in the balls, like just constantly for like, I don't know, if you don't save state, I guess hours on end. Yeah, that game's rough.
I quit on
Um,
the adventure final boss streaming it the other
oh
day.
yeah, oh my God, that thing's insane.
Well, it wasn't even that it was really hard because I went back to it after I like somebody Piggy had sent me a video of somebody beating it and I was like, oh, okay. It was just annoying. I was just like, I'm
Yeah,
I'm not in the mood to be annoyed. Like
right.
I'm just like I really can't be bothered. And then
Hmm.
going through it, and I was just like, yeah, this would have I it's one thing to play a game that's frustrating or challenging. It's another thing to just be annoyed. I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
like I no like I
In frustrating or challenging in like a good way, and
right like
not that way.
Ninja Gaiden Sigma kind of straddles that. Sometimes
Hmm.
it teeters into not in a good way, but for the most part, it stayed oh right.
Hmm.
It's like okay, but yeah, Castlevania Adventure, that stupid fight with Dracula. It's just like this is dumb. I'm whatever. I'm not in the
Yeah,
mood.
yeah, I feel you.
It's just I don't. And it wasn't even like it was just that hard. It was just because of how like the controls were. I'm like I'm not even.
Yeah, it is just slow and clumsy. And like people complain, there are people who complain about, the original Castlevania, how slow it is. I mean, if that game were wound any more tightly, it would snap. Like it it is just fairly slow and methodical, but it's also like, predictable. And I love the hell out of Castlevania 1. But yeah, that Game Boy game is it's too far,
Well,
too
that and
slow.
also the original one. It's got 18 and a half minutes or 19 minutes of fantastic OST.
Oh, for sure,
Like,
for sure.
good lord, to come out punching like that.
Hmm.
That Game Boy one, no, not really. There might be like a tune or two that I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty enjoyable. Most of it, no, not really.
Hmm.
Those great tunes got shuffled to Belmont's Revenge,
Yeah,
and some of them are from classic tunes like Bach
yeah.
and what is that, Chromatic Fantasy or something.
Oh, I have no clue.
It's I'm not gonna do that because it's Bach. Whatever. It's the fight with
I feel like I was warping into the
all
future.
right. Woo.
Whatever.
The fight with Soleil. I'm probably butchering that name with
That's not ringing a bell. That must have fell out of my head.
it's a pretty cool tune, but it's a Bach theme. It's a Bach
Okay.
composition. That and also what's that? Passpeed. Is it a Debussy piece?
Okay.
The dun dun dun. Dun, dun, dun. I can't whatever. I don't know why I even try because I get like three notes in. I'm like, I don't fucking remember this. But yeah, I'll make a note. Link tunes Belmont Revenge. But yeah, no, yeah, there's a couple pieces like classical pieces in that game. You're like, oh, okay. It's
You
pretty
think
wild.
that's something that they would have dabbled with a little more, and maybe they have, and I'm just too uncultured to notice. But you would think that, like, being as Renaissance-y as or something as that series is, uh, you think they would have done more of that. But I'm content that they didn't, that they did their own original music because I mean. Most of those soundtracks absolutely slap.
Right. Like even I know people will waylay into two, but two's got some really great tunes in it, even beyond Bloody Tears. Like
Yeah,
I just what's
which it
the
originated, right? Like that was
Mhm.
originally in two. So that's like, I mean, that alone kind of makes that game legendary because that song has been covered to death. They've had so many official, I mean, and unofficial renditions of that song have been made. It's iconic.
And a sneaky favorite of mine is the town theme. I really like the town theme.
Mm,
There's just something really really just good about it. And it could be just from my time playing it and be like, "Oh, this is a safe spot."
right.
But yeah, no, like it's yeah, that series up until I can't remember her name. Is it Michiru Yamane? Is that whoever took over, kind of pushing into Symphony of the Night and stuff? I know a lot of people like that soundtrack. For whatever reason, that soundtrack, and it just could be because I am some sort of contrarian fool, but I can't like I don't really like that soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
Outside of Wandering Ghosts, I
Hmm.
really like that tune. That's like I really dig that tune, and there's maybe one other tune that I really enjoy, but that soundtrack as a whole does not do it for me.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way about Castlevania 4, honestly, its soundtrack. And I mean that game in general I think is fine, but I don't like as much as 1, 3 or Rondo or even Dracula X for that matter. I just kind of it's hashtag not my Castlevania. It's still good. I feel that way about the Metroidvanias to some extent, but that was last episode. So
Yeah, I
I
still
just
have to beat four. Like I've never
oh
beaten
yeah.
four. Yeah, like I don't really like it. I'm just kind of like
Yeah.
eh.
Yeah, I get it. A lot of people were just kind of like, "Oh, you can whip in 8 directions, dude," and that's enough for them, and that's fine. But I need a little more than that, I think. And it's a little more. It's got its atmospheric soundtrack, and people are into that whole like ambient thing. But I don't know. It's not exactly my thing. I would prefer some big fat melodies, I guess.
That's yeah. That actually, honestly, that's a big part of the drawback for me is that
Yeah.
it doesn't. Yeah, I mean it doesn't. Isn't there the point towards the end where it has the platforms that are drifting at an angle? It sort of rehashes the old like trilogy's music or something. Doesn't it do that?
Oh,
Toward,
probably. I don't remember.
uh,
Because it's not one of my favorites. It's I think a lot of it kind of. I mean, even a lot of my favorite things. The specifics kind of just fade out of my brain after a while. But something that I thought was just okay. It's not
not
something that I remember super well.
not devoting precious precious drive space for it. And like, meh.
It doesn't help also that when I got into that series, I was basically playing them back to back, like I tend to do with a lot of games. So things can blend when you do that. It's like I actually, when B. Clark was talking about the 3 Saga games for the Game Boy in his last episode, and I kind of feel like the same way, where those games kind of blend to me a little bit, which I think you're a pretty big fan of those, right? So
the what were they called in the States?
Final
Legends?
Fantasy Legends,
And then
Is that
Adventure
it?
was Secret of Mana.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so yeah, the Legends ones, the first one, a bit dicey. I start to really like them, especially when it gets into 3. So, Ryuji Sasai also did compositions for 3. So it's a pretty beastly soundtrack. Plus, one of my favorite YouTube videos is it's titled "The Motherfucking Talon Theme," which is great because that just I I totally understand. Like I get it. Like yes. But yeah, no, the soundtrack for 3 is phenomenal. Like even it's another one of those like Game Boy soundtracks. You're like, what? And it was one of those games, particularly 3. It and Secret of Mana, like the US version of Secret of Mana, were 2 games that I remember just looking at Nintendo Powers that I would borrow from the library and stuff and be like, man, I really want to play these games. And then when I finally got to play them, it's like, yes, I really enjoy these games. So they'll have near and dear places in my heart. But I guess those are I think you might have been referring to more so the Super Nintendo ones now that I think about it. But
okay.
But I mean, I could be wrong. I could be misremembering. I mean, the Super Famicom, Super Nintendo ones are great too. So they're just the same. 1's a little wonky. 2 is deviously hard. Like 2 is generational thing. So if you screw up a generation, you're gonna have fun in that next generation. Have fun.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I think the remake of 2 does a thing where it's similar to like Dead Rising, where if you which that's a weird thing to say.
That is a very weird thing to say.
It's in that if you like game over, you can choose to take all of your progress and kind of restart the game with that, like, I don't know if it's, your levels or all your items or gold, but some of your progress can kind of like carry over from your failed attempt.
Okay.
And you that is given to you at the beginning of your new game. So it's not like you're not just like, well, this run's screwed.
Sucks. Yeah, because that was the aggravating thing for that Super Famicom. Is like,
because you don't want to put dozens of hours in an RPG and then find out that you did it wrong.
Well, especially with the first one on the Romancing Saga, it's like, oh, you decided to grind for a couple levels. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. It's like, why? Why would you do this? Why are you so mean?
I played a little bit of that, not even the Minstrel Song remake, but the original Romancing Saga, and like, okay, not only is it kind of like ass ugly, but it is just opaque, and my goodness, it's just insane. Like, I was like, no, I'm the guy. I like to do things in order like that, like play these game series in order like that. But I said, fuck it, I'm not finishing this. And then I played a little of 2, and it was similar but easier to get into.
Yeah, it's just, I guess it's really hard in that, like, when you're trying to get through because I want to say there's like 4. There might be more. No, there's the 7 heroes, but I think there's 4 different generations that you go through.
Okay.
And it can get really squirrely real quick, and you're like, oh, shoot. 3 though is phenomenal. 3 is one of those you can actually sit there and play, so and not be like, okay. The only thing difficult about 3, not to say that the game can't be difficult, but the really difficult thing about 3 is the final boss, where you're like, okay. I'm in trouble. this is bad. And not in like a, this is just like a, like poorly put together. No, the boss, if you are not ready for it, we'll decide that it is Judgment Day. And we'll stomp you in the dirt real quick.
Jeez.
But it's good. Like that sound, especially that's Romancing Saga 3 soundtrack is just so delicious.
I'm the goblin who's waiting for Unlimited Saga to come out.
You are a goblin for just saying.
Yeah, I bought it not knowing what I was getting myself into years ago, and I don't think I got far enough into it to be like, "What is this?" But pretty much the unanimous response of everyone who plays that game is, "What is this?" And that has me excited. So I'm curious to give that a try when it inevitably gets remastered, because man, I don't know that his name is escaping me, but the creator of that series, he's got dirt on somebody at Square Enix. It's either that or, with him being one of the last guys, the original guys left there, he just gets free reign to kind of, let his pet series are the ones that take precedence. Like they're putting all of them out. Like they're getting all these remakes and remasters. It's like Saga Frontier 2 is coming, I'm sure, if it hasn't already been announced. Like they are, of all of the Square Enix franchises, the two that are just like completely available to play for the most part on most consoles at this point are Final Fantasy and Saga, which is weird.
It's if I remember correctly, Saga has a very strong fan base. I remember somebody I worked with who wasn't really into games.
Yeah.
He was into Saga.
And I was so weird because it's so hardcore.
Right? And that was his jam. I'm like, how? What? Like, okay. Like, you're not even somebody I talk to about games. But this is the series you planted your flag on? Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
sometimes people just have their one thing. Like, it just grabs them when they're young or whatever for some reason. Like, this is the one that I played when I was a kid, and now it's the one I'm going to play forever. And I guess for some people that's like Super Mario, and for some people it's Saga. And Akitoshi Kawazu, by the way.
Oh, right.
Was the creator whose name I forgot. But yeah, he's got some... He knows about some affairs that have gone on in that office, I'm sure, because he's got the evidence. He just slaps the manila envelope down on the CEO's desk and says, "So, how about Saga Frontier 2?" And he gets what he wants.
Yeah, the Square Enix political games being played.
Yep. For sure.
Man. I kind of want to play Romancing Saga 3 now. I love the magical tank battle theme. I don't know if you know that one off the top of your head.
No, I don't.
Okay. It's there's just something about that tune. It just sounds so different than a lot of the other stuff going on, and just how it starts up with the revving of the engine kind of thing for it, and just the whole premise of the psycho scientist.
Yeah.
And everything. It's just like, oh, yeah. Gracious. Oh, I'm trying to think. As I say, has there been anything else? Have you been playing the Resident Evil 4 remake, I think?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good. I enjoy it quite a bit. Definitely feels a little more like a tune-up. As opposed to like a full-on remake. I mean, even though obviously, like if you put them both side by side, obviously you're going to be able to see the difference. But just because the gameplay is similar enough that it's not as radically different as, say, the remake of 2 is to the original 2.
Gotcha.
But 4 is also the one that, for whatever reason, I remember the worst out of all the other ones. Like,
really?
I know the key moments. Yeah, for whatever reason. I mean, my Resident Evil is the old school, tank controls and a fixed perspective kind of thing. So I oddly enough, I actually have not met a Resident Evil I didn't like. Like I like pretty much all of them. Even the bad ones can be fun in co-op. Uh, so enjoy most of them. I even liked 7 quite a bit, and 8 a little lesser from what I played. But yeah, 4 is don't think I have a whole lot to say about it, but yeah, it's good. Solid game right there. It was solid, whatever 15, 16, 17 years ago when it came out, and it's solid again now.
Yeah, I want to say it's been, I think it's closer to 18. Did it come out in like
Okay.
2005?
Yeah, 2005 or 2006, one of the two.
Good Lord.
Probably 2005 because we were on. I mean, obviously games still come out on the older consoles when the new ones come out, but 2006 we were a year into that a new generation.
All right. And the only reason why I say that is because I remember playing that sophomore year in college,
Oh, okay.
and I remember getting the scaries from it
Yeah.
because it was my roommates, and I think he went out and went back home or something. So I was playing. I'm like, this game's scary,
Uh-huh.
but it's so
They
much fun.
retained a little bit of the goofiness in this one. Like he still does his "Where'd everyone go?" Ginga line at the beginning of the game, but
The right hand comes
some a
off.
little bit of that's been cut out. Now he just makes these very boring quips where
Oh.
someone will be like, "Oh, welcome to the party, Leon," and he'll be like, "I'll show you a party," and it's
Oh,
like, well,
jeez.
is that writing? I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know. Like, I'm no writer, but
Oh
I don't know
no.
about that. That's like
That's
some lazy, like Hollywood quipping or
There's a
whatever right
lot of
there.
that, and it's just I know I talked about this with B. Clark in the previous one. I have a hard time really appreciating when people are allowed to like what they like, but when somebody says, "Oh yeah, this sounds like people talking," I'm like, I hear people talking. I don't know if I want want to see that. Like
Yeah, there'd be a lot of like a lot of ums.
that are just like maybe we should try to punch this up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's try to make it a little bit more clever. I don't know.
And there's a difference between something being realistic and being believable.
Yeah,
And I think that that's important. Like believable dialogue is not necessary. It does not necessarily have to be realistic.
that's a good line to draw there between believability and realistic.
Hmm.
And some people like to blur that line very, very, very heavily. So, I guess with that, we should probably, take a break and then get into the topic. Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
good little segue. So, yeah, we're gonna take a break, and then maybe I won't botch the next title for the song, but who knows? If I can screw things up in English, by golly gee, I'm gonna screw it up in Japanese. So screw it up whatever language I
I
want
believe
to.
in you.
Leave in the heart of the cards, or whatever that's supposed to be. All right, take a break. See ya after a minute or two.
Wow.
Whatever. Welcome back. That there, and I know I'm going to butcher this because I want to say it's actually something else, but this is what I got for it is Hiroari Keteu o Iru Koto, which means Hiroari shoots a strange bird. Pew pew.
Okay.
Right? You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense for the song.
Obviously.
Yeah, totally. I really enjoy this piece. It's one of those that it's got the through repetition. You're kind of like, okay, and then once it kind of gets into, you're like, oh, okay, this is almost, I don't know how to put it. Like,
It's a jaunty tune.
yeah, good old jaunty tune to it there. It just is this weird, playful bit that sort of feels like it's stuck in neutral at first, but then once it gets into it, it's got that I don't know, not odd timing, but the timing is different on it, or at least it's stressed a bit more, and it's just like, oh, yeah. And
There's a little bit of an intensity that comes with that percussion too, like those cymbals at the beginning. I like all that the crashing.
Yeah. And then it kind of strips it into this. Jaunty is a good way to put it. It goes. It goes from. I almost want. I want to picture this as they're having a whole lot of fun at some place close to the docks, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the title of the song really doesn't fit. Unless shooting a strange bird is part of the game.
Maybe it's maybe
it's a tavern
maybe that's
game.
what it is. It's some kind of weird pirate slang. Really shot the strange bird tonight.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah.
Whatever that means, I don't. I'd rather not know. We're knocking back a bunch of wooden goblets of beer or whatever you call them, wooden mugs.
Wooden goblets.
I don't know whatever.
Like a tankard.
A tankard, yes.
Okay.
One of those wooden goblets.
Wooden goblets.
You know,
yeah, sure.
a couple of WGs over there.
Yeah, no, I get it. It totally works. No judgment. Shooting the bird.
Oh,
How
yeah.
about we shoot the strange bird?
Heck yeah, man.
So you were the one that I like how you put this because I'm looking at it. You commented, you're like, I could take a crack at this.
Yeah, well, that's the confidence you get when you put me in charge of picking a topic or really doing anything. I've never been sure of anything in my life, to be completely honest with you. So that's about as courageous as you'll find me getting. Part of it was just the fact that I don't know, the prospect of talking about stories with a writer. I mean, that's pretty good. So what the whole prompt was, at least the beginning, was should a story have a purpose? That was the first part. There's a lot of parts, but that was the first part, and probably a pretty good place to start with. And I guess my answer to that would be maybe. And I think I don't personally believe in the whole death of the author thing because even if only because it makes things more interesting to be able to get the input of the creator of a work. But I do think that whether you intend for a story to have a purpose or not, I mean, once art gets into the hands of the people consuming it, I do think that people are going to interpret it how they wish. So what do you think as a writer? How do you feel about that?
So for a very long time, and I know I fall into a bad habit of this in general, I'm very much in the mindset of everything should have purpose. And I think it's because of my parents. My parents are hippies. And so they just kind of float wherever the wind kind of blows.
Right.
And it drives me up a wall. Like, it just drives me absolutely batty because I see how their lives have gone. And the people that they've had in their lives, I've seen how they've gone about things. And I'm like, there's not to like, and I guess I think that they do have they should have a purpose, and it's not
Right.
necessarily that the purpose needs to be meaningful in the sense of it needs to bestow a lesson. It can just be purposeful in the sense that it is a like a humorous story. That's the thing I've had to learn myself.
Okay.
So for me, it was like initially it was all these things have to tell you something. It's not they don't have to tell you anything. Because you need to be able to live your own life, and
Right. It's not every story is not a book of rules.
exactly. So but that's partially just because of how I had to grow up, having hippies who were so hands off.
Yeah.
I needed to learn, like I needed rules from somewhere. I needed to pick them from somewhere. So that's
Yeah.
so I fall into the camp that there should be a purpose to them, but the purpose doesn't necessarily need to be. It is teaching me, oh, hey, the stovetop is hot when it's on.
Right. Right.
It's just, oh, something can just be kind of funny, or even just a simple story of like a pun or like a stand up act or something.
Right.
In there, the stories that are being told are there to just kind of either point at something more truthful that you can't really get to, or just to make people laugh. So I'm very confidently going to say yes. They should have a purpose.
I like it. No, I definitely agree with that. Even more so because I was generally thinking more in terms of like, oh, should this story say something about society, or I do think I was thinking a little more grandiose than that. But no, I definitely I'm picking up what you're putting down there.
Hey, well, and I think
sure.
that's part of the struggle that we all have with that, is that we tend to, that's our initial thought, is that when it comes to purpose needs to be, as you said something more grandiose, something bigger than ourselves. And it's like, no,
Right.
not necessarily. Purpose can be something as simple as just the intent of something.
Right.
And just doing something
Right.
purposeful, like, oh, my intent is to make you laugh, so I'm going to tell you a funny story. Like,
Right.
what's the pun that I learned earlier? Yes, I'm going to go with a pun. I was walking through the quarry the other day, and I happened to run into the foreman. And so we were talking and chit-chatting, and I was like, oh, wow. Pointed out something. I was like, that's a really big rock. And the foreman, being as nice as he was like, hey, he corrected me. He's like, boulder. And so I decided to stick out my chest and go, that's a really big rock.
I didn't know where that was going, but I wasn't expecting that. I'll tell you that.
Right?
I was nervous, but it paid off.
Right? And so, yeah, I mean, as long as you're going with the intent for it, and of course the intent can be really, really, especially if you're trying to have a heart-to-heart with somebody. Mm-hmm. Like if you try to be purposeful or intentful, and it can completely miss it, and whether that's because what you're trying to intend is not coming across, or the other person's on a completely different wavelength, right?
Right. Yeah. Or they're unappreciative of your specific flavor of advice, I guess.
Well, and I think
Or
that's a lot
feel
of
that
people.
you're talking down to them.
Right.
They might feel.
I think it's a lot of people, though. Right?
Yeah.
It's just, they don't want to hear it because, for whatever reason. And it's just like, I'm one of those people, like, I'm all ear for, if somebody's got some advice, not to necessarily say that I'll follow it lock and step, but it's like, okay, all right, I see you have a different perspective on this. This might help elucidate something that I'm not seeing, because we all have blind
Right.
spots,
Oh, for sure.
and so it's, for me, it's like, that's, I remember getting broached about why I even write. Somebody who I was dating for a moment, one of her friends was like, why do you even write? Like, what's like, why do that? And
Here.
Well, no, there are people that are like that because her friend was big into like history stuff, and you have a lot of people who are into history who are just like fiction is not nearly as interesting as
Oh, okay.
like history, and there's something to that, but then I think with the answer that I gave her, and I don't remember exactly how I put it, but I was like, there are certain things that you can only tell through writing that shine a light in a different way that you would never be able to see really with like living life or learning about somebody.
Right.
Like I think of like Lost Odyssey. I know I bring this game up all the time.
Still need to finish that one. I have played a bit of it. Uh,
Do you remember like what disc you were on?
it was still the first disc.
Okay.
I had discovered, I think, three or four of the memories, which I
Okay.
think that's what they call the stories, right? They're
Like the memory
the
sequences.
memories or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the written stories.
Well, I don't know if I should say it then. I know I've said it in another thing about it,
Hmm.
but I don't know if I should say it now.
Go ahead.
Are you? It's not like it's a big spoiler, really.
Right. That's
But
fine.
in the story of it, right? The Sakaguchi tasked that writer with writing 1,000 years of sorrow. Like what it is, like those memory sequences are building up 1,000 years of sorrow. So you
Yeah.
have the weight of this character who, because you've played at least a little bit of it, you know that Kaim is very apathetic. He is so disenfranchised with humanity.
Right.
However, to by the end of it, to rediscover the love of people,
Hmm.
and it isn't just even just by the end, but like throughout that story, to me, that is not something. Not that it's not something, but to me, it's a very like powerful message to get across. Is that despite 1,000 years of sorrow, despite the torment that is still yet to come, because that is what life offers. To quote Deadwood, that's what life is one vile
Yeah.
fucking task after another. And it's
Yeah.
that's not always the case, the,
Right.
the mentality of it, but it's a one that I chuckle
Hmm.
and quote a lot just when people are getting frustrated about stuff.
Yeah.
but um, but to rediscover that love, like, yeah, there's other ways that can be expressed in the stories, or if you know people. However, if there maybe there is nobody in your life that has gone through that journey to sink to the depths of being disenfranchised, maybe even being misanthropic, and then slowly coming around to being like, no, I love people. Like,
Yeah.
why do that? Why do that to yourself? Why do that to others?
And
So,
that's something that can only be done in fiction because, as far as I know, there's nobody who's ever lived 1,000 years.
right,
You
right.
know, there's just who has the time.
Yeah, it's just it's an awfully long time.
Right. And those are things, I guess, ideas that you can't express in that way that you can't with history. People, over thousands of years collectively experience that, but you don't. I don't know. Maybe with a story and with it's easier to project onto a single person than it is to project on millions of people over thousands of years. Like your eyes just kind of glaze over. You can understand. You can understand what all those people are going through, and you can how do I want to put it? You can understand it in your head, like logically, what it might have been like, but it's harder than if you were to just say if you were to just put it on a single person, I guess. And that's something that's like I said, only fiction can do.
It's I think it's like it shines a light in a way that's how to put it? Like sometimes the only way to get to the truth of the matter is through lying, and I know that sounds really weird, right? But I mean, it's just one of those things that that, and it's not necessarily that you're lying to like try to get to an answer. It's more because of the whole fact that you're telling a story. Like it doesn't mean that all of it's lies. There are truths in it, and I think that's, to me personally, is that a truth, something that's very, very truthful. I know you can get into some wishy-washy territory when it comes to, well, what is the truth? My truth, and all this. Like I'm not even necessarily going in that route. I mean,
Right.
like just in the sense of, like, oh, let's not be misanthropic towards one another. I think that's one that we can. I think everybody can kind of get on the same page for.
Yeah.
Is that it is, as miserable as things may be at times, it is probably a much better road to walk to do it in love than it is to do it in apathy and disdain and that sort of thing. So,
And why not? Like if ultimately you do decide that maybe, I don't know, if you're one of those nothing matters people, well, if if nothing truly matters, then you might as well not be a dick. I think that's how I see it. Might as well enjoy it.
right.
At least as much as you can.
Yeah. Those nothing matters. Oh boy. Yeah, that just always that like riles my spirit of, kind of with the like the purpose thing, kind of with the hippies and stuff. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, okay, you've given yourself that. That's if that's how you want to go about things. In 15 years, either get back to me or talk to my tombstone about it, or
Right.
one of those kind of things. But like, that just aggravates me.
And if you actually felt that way, why would you want to give that to others? That's my thing. Is it's like if I often when I feel, a way like that, I kind of think to myself like, oh, maybe that'll be an inside thought. Maybe I don't need to bestow that bestow that
What is that?
to everyone else.
There's a German word for like the thoughts in the back of your head.
Of course there is.
Of course there is, right? There's those deep-seated dark thoughts.
And they're all like, oh, very, very angry and very multisyllabic. Those German words.
But yeah, well, but misery loves company, right? So,
Oh yeah.
so anything to I don't want to say drag down, but to kind of get you to sit at the circle. And it's I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because I can be certainly, if I wanted to, I could certainly be a dour Debbie Downer, whatever. I think that's easy.
Oh, it is.
Where it's like, I'll just laugh about it, and not in like some, maniacal, oh, something snapped in Taylor's brain, kind of laughter, but just kind of chuckle about something. I do this a lot with like things that frustrate me, like, when you have the stupid small things go wrong.
Yeah.
And it just either compounds, or it's like, oh, dumb thing went wrong, and then like 2 minutes later, different dumb thing went wrong. Oh, and it's just like, okay, it's going to be one of those days. You just kind of laugh about it.
Sometimes you can just tell early.
Right? Like, I can't be like, oh, well, it's all just, this is garbage. I can't do this. Like, some people fall off the wagon real quick, and they're just like, I can't. And I'm like,
Right.
It's like, nope. I'll laugh about it and be like, okay, we'll try this again. Let's
Right.
this time from the diaphragm. Take two.
I don't know. I think I'm a weird mix between like assuming everything's going to go wrong
Mm.
and then being pleasantly surprised when it kind of doesn't. But also having a high enough tolerance for bullshit that I can just be like, oh, whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, I thought that was gonna be way worse. Usually, even if something goes bad. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm prone to pessimism, but like I said earlier, I just don't think. I don't think if you're prone to something like that, like I wouldn't want to give it to everyone else. I don't know.
Mm. Certainly,
Just for me.
you're being greedy. It's all
Yeah.
mine, mine,
I'm gonna
mine.
hoard all this pessimism like a big old jerk. How rude.
How very inconsiderate of you.
Hmm.
So, leading it on here, I know like what it ought to try to accomplish kind of falls into something we just talked about with the purpose, but
Right.
games in particular, I feel like I certainly felt like for a while I lied to myself about them having a very like, oh, games can have really interesting stories. I feel like it's generally a mixed bag.
Yeah. This is where I crack my knuckles and be like, yeah,
So,
yeah.
do you feel that stories for games generally tend to fall flat?
Yeah. Yes, I do because so often, way too often, I just think that the stories that games are trying to tell and the mechanics that they want to have are kind of at odds with each other. Because pretty much the way that we interface with things in most games, or at least I mean quite literally every AAA game,
Hmm.
and many other games are shoot it in the face. You know, you're killing something, you're shooting something, stabbing something, maiming something, or someone.
Mm.
You know, fairly often. Um, I just feel like now and like it's the thing was where I love these systems. I'm a big RPG guy, you know.
Hmm.
It's more because of their systems. Like I love killing a slime. You know, that's good stuff. But I mean, that's so many games feel like they need to have the combat, and I think because of that, it really limits the kind of stories that you can tell because I don't know. I think it might go back to a little bit of the realistic versus believable. Like, I mean, it's not. It's not realistic even that you can fix all of your problems by punching something in the face or killing something. But
Mm.
that's kind of what these systems in a lot of these games are built for. And it's
Mm.
not realistic really or believable honestly most of the time unless unless these games contextualize their themes and their villains really well. I'm generally for the longest time I've grown to kind of be comfortable with like enjoying a video game story out of necessity, but I also kind of feel like they really um, most of them really just aren't that good.
As I say, honestly, I that's a good point you bring up about the violence and that to solve violence is more violence. Um, I I don't know how other way to put this. I condone violence to a certain degree. Well,
Well, there
so
we go.
there's a um like a piece of artwork that I love from Peace Walker. It is a bomber jet in the shape of the peace sign.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I think
I
that's is it in the logo even maybe?
I believe so. If not, it should be. And whoever didn't do that, test shame on you.
Yeah.
Like I have a pin of it that I will wear every now and again. People are like, oh, it's a cool peace sign. I'm like, you need to pay a little bit closer attention to it.
Yeah.
It's
Get
a
out the
bomber jet.
monocle, buddy.
It's a bomber jet, and they're like, oh man, that's actually pretty cool. Like a lot of people are like, oh, that's a pretty cool idea. Like
Yeah.
violence doesn't to enact it is one thing, but to be able
Right.
to, like, what's the Teddy Roosevelt quote, like, speak softly but carry a big stick. It's more of
Yeah.
the projection of violence, the willingness to commit violence. It's a
Right.
way to stymie potential violence.
Right.
It's just the way that it works. It's do I like it? Do I? No, no, not really. I don't. It's if we could all just sing "Kumbaya" at the campfire, that'd be great. But in the same hand,
Right.
that's not how that works.
And man, recent current events have kind of brought into question the politics of pacifism, where you have people saying, we're getting into the heavy stuff now. People saying that, well, Ukraine, should just Ukraine should just give up, or Ukraine should just, they should go into peace talks with Russia, but they just want. It's all about peace, but it's this false, unjust peace, where they just want this one group of people to just basically roll over and take it from their oppressor. But it's such a horrible, dangerous precedent. And you have this group of people who would rather fight and die than roll over because they understand that life under that regime is a life that's worse than death, even. So as I talk about this violence, I'm not saying that I'm not one of these, just work it out, man, hippies, who just thinks that we should all just get along. Like you said, even as nice as that would be, that doesn't work when, I mean, if everyone decides unanimously to disarm, there's going to be that one jackal who decides to
This is the perfect chance,
yes, wait until the end.
right? That or maybe a generation or two be like, oh, these guys aren't doing anything.
These guys don't have their guns. I'm gonna use my guns, and we're gonna take them's over.
Makes me think of The Simpsons. Isn't there one with The Simpsons where they get disarmed and so they start attacking the aliens with like boards and nails and stuff like that? Or something?
I'm not sure.
I have vague if Sushi was here, he would know exactly what episode, what like minute frame.
Oh yeah,
he's encyclopedic with that stuff. But there's a line. Are you familiar with the Proto Men?
I've heard some of their music, but I don't. I'm not like super down that rabbit hole, I guess.
Gotcha. From I think it's the first album, because it's it's a more dystopian telling of Dr. Wily taking over a city. In the first album, there's a point in which Mega Man and Proto Man are fighting.
Yeah.
And then Proto Man has this line about like he's kind of like, hey, I've been in your shoes. Like these people aren't willing to fight for themselves. Like they just want a martyr. Like they're not doing anything. They want the symbolism of it, but they have no heart in this. And Mega Man's like, well, I will be that heart. And he's like, you don't understand. Like you don't get it. Like none of them. What's the line that he uses at one point? He's like, do any of you value courage over life? And for some people that I remember mentioning it to somebody, and somebody's like, well, they brought up an instance of, well, if doing something reckless, and it's like courage isn't necessarily just doing the wild reckless thing, because you can like even to try to like contextualize this even further, I think of the Lacedaemonians, the good old Spartans. You've seen 300, right?
I have not.
You've not? Okay.
No.
Well, shoot. It is the movie 300, and also it's based loosely, hyper loosely on actual events.
Right.
But the movie is what's going on is being told by one of the survivors. I can't think of his name.
Okay.
But he gets maimed. I think he loses an eye or something in the movie. I don't think that happens in real life. But he gets maimed to the point where Leonidas is like, hey, you need to go. Like, not like you're worthless to us, but you are injured to the point where it would be better for you to go tell what happens. It's a shameful thing. He feels like he should be dying with his king.
Right.
And so he's riling up all the other different Spartans and Greek peoples to fight the invading Persians and stuff. And eventually, when they start to finally boot out these Persians, the Lacedaemonians make a point of which this guy is absolutely psychotic. He is fighting with such reckless abandonment. We do not see this as courageous. He does not value life. He just wants to die on the battlefield.
Right.
And I guess I'm kind of contextualizing it. Like, courage doesn't mean you just act like the fool and just go headlong into just dying on something.
Right.
Kind of thing. And that's, I think, when it comes to something like you were mentioning with the Ukraine and Russian bit, and just in general, is that I really feel like people maybe value life a little bit too much, and not so much the courage part. And it's like, perhaps we really should value the courage thing. But then you get into like the whole World War I, World War II. It feels like a lot of that courage was bled out of people.
Right. Well, but it's also life versus quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
Even too, because like I said, what is a life under that kind of rule? Like, I mean, it's a life, but is it one that's I mean, I almost don't even want to say this, but is it that worth living? If you're under a dictator's thumb. And I mean, they seem to have decided that no, it's not. And I mean, they're the ones fighting, and it's so easy for Joe douchebag fucking 3,000 miles away, sitting in his armchair, eating Doritos or whatever, to be like, well, I think that we should all just be peaceful. And it's like, well, yeah, well, I think that you should eat my whole ass. Honestly, like, it's I don't know. I don't know how we got here.
That's right. Well, just even, I guess you to me, I think of you don't even have to go into the I guess the extremes of that.
Right.
I can even just think of in general of for myself of just something very basic in how like I live life, and that I like to do things.
Yeah.
I don't like to just passively. I'm not like big fan of like watching TV. Even when I have YouTube stuff on, I'm generally trying to do something else, whether it's cleaning or reorganizing things, or maybe I'm going on a walk, and even then half the time I'll just be like, I'm not gonna even have it on, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's, to me, it's like the act of doing something, and even if it is a small kernel, especially with a lot of people, there's like that a lot of anxiety or anxiousness to do things, and in just doing things, going out, putting out music that you may embarrass me by saying I seem to have a decent touch for melody, like I am not musically trained. I'm half deaf. I am an idiot, yet I will still put out stuff that I'm like, I really enjoy this. Now, some people may feel too shameful or too, in a weird, wicked sense, be too prideful to release it because they think, oh no, this has got to be better. It's like, at a certain point, you just got to let you got to let it go.
Yeah.
let the birdie fly.
Classic line is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Exactly. And I'll never be perfect, so I'll at least try to be good.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I feel like with the anxiety too is, and then, that compounds. Like when you just don't do anything and you just continue to do nothing, it's like even basic tasks can end up being terrifying. I mean, like something like that, it's like, it's like a muscle in a way, I guess. You have to, you gotta, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so, you gotta get out there and do something.
And that's,
baby steps even, get something done.
My mother has expressed this to me, and I find this very odd. Concerning, but also very odd, is that she has expressed that she is jealous of my brother and I.
Yeah.
My oldest brother. I don't know. I might have mentioned this on a Rambling Weekly at some point. She said she was jealous of Cody, who was on talking about historical stuff with the Byzantine Empire a bunch of episodes ago. She was jealous of him and I because when we have set our eyes on trying to do something, we go and do it.
Right.
There isn't a lot of this nonsense of blah 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 blah. Certainly there may be like a planning thing involved. There isn't just sure, it's a done. Spontaneity. Right. Like spontaneity is great and everything in like relationships and whatnot, but when it comes to trying to do certain things, writing a book or, getting your master's or what have you, kind of need a little bit more, a little less of the spontaneity, a little bit more of the scaffolding in place.
Right.
and
I don't know how old your mom is, but it's like that's a lot of decades of bad habits to unlearn. A lot of decades of that to like. I hate to be this way, but it's almost like it's at some point you might become a lost cause. As awful as that sounds.
No, I get it. We are. What's the? There's an Aristotle quote about how excellence is not. What is it? Excellence is not a singular act. It is. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit.
Right.
And it doesn't even have to be excellence. Because
right.
that breeds pretentiousness and haughty. Oh, I'm better than thee, and which is never a good thing because then what ends up happening if you exude that and then other people take that as, oh well, you think you're better than me. I'm not even gonna. Whatever lessons you may have, trash, garbage. Not even. Like,
why should I listen to you?
Why should I listen to you? Yeah, no, and it's less about the excellence and it's more about the maybe execution of
right.
Of just whatever those habits are. So, I in editing for this new book, like I've had to learn not to just have the hippie, I have to let the spirit of writing kind of imbue in me. I get it. I totally get it. I wish I could just, that would be the thing. No.
Right.
Like it just doesn't work. Not all the time. Well, sometimes, certainly. But there's times where you just gotta get to business and you just gotta do the thing.
And that's a skill in and of itself.
Right, yeah.
Doing it without necessarily maybe feeling like doing it. Like it's just like, well, we got to get something out there.
Yeah, well, that and it's just like I've gotten to the habit of, okay, we're going to go through and edit like a chapter a day. Or at least, some soft edit or something. And it's just like I can't just be like, oh, well, I'm just... Because I know if I do that, my brain will just be like, oh, well, we'll just postpone it and just do a couple days later. My YouTube channel pretty much pans that out to be like, hey.
Right.
Where it's just like, you don't need it. Whatever, you'll get to it. You'll get to it. We'll get to it never gets done.
Yeah.
Gracious. To pivot way back to the game story bit.
Beep bop boop.
Yeah, right.
Video games.
Yeah, I'm with you in that most game stories generally tend to fall flat. I never thought of it in the violence sense, but that is a good element to bring up because there are those ones that aren't, like what's it, Journey, where it's just you're just kind of going for a walk.
But I'm gonna be real. As much as I do believe the fact that most games need to be violent does pigeonhole the stories that they're able to tell, you won't catch me playing an artsy indie game. Like I'm sorry. Like that's just not gonna happen. Like I enjoy the battle systems, and if you could you could find a way to incorporate a battle system and like do something interesting without, it having to be a battle, with it having to, it doesn't have to be violent. I'm just saying that, like, when all you are basically allowed to do in a AAA game is kill, you're gonna get a very narrow slice of stories that you can tell.
That conflict.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the thing that always gets to me a lot of times, and I absolutely hate it and it gets told not just through games, but you see this in a lot of like children's media and stuff. Is like the power of friendship overcoming the evil baddie. Like that. I get it to a certain degree because it's great to have friends, but in the same hand, you're not really giving a good message by simply saying, well, because I have friends, we win.
Right.
Kind of thing. Like,
maybe be because I have quality friends, because I have a solid support system.
Right.
is something that helps me accomplish the things I need to accomplish.
Well, I think it overshadows the whole message of, oh, well, it's less just the power of friendship, but also that these ideas are not necessarily nearly as psychotic.
Right.
And then of course it gets even more watered down, because then it's like, well, you're not so different, you and I kind of.
Oh my fuck. That's always the worst. We're the same, actually.
Yeah.
No, you're a fascist. I'm nothing like you. Get away from me.
You're an absolute psycho.
You want to genocide the world.
I just want to genocide slimes.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone.
Just the slimes.
Just the slimes. Oh. Well, then sometimes they'll try to like make it interesting. I think of what's Tales of Phantasia. It really tries to contextualize the villain's acts in a very different way than what you think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a way that they try to tell a story and make it a little bit more involved in a certain, try to make you think, even if it is that small narrow slice of, well, violence is the way you're getting through this, but we're going to try to contextualize in a different way, that it's like, well, they weren't necessarily just trying to be a jerk. They were trying to do something, because things on their end are not going so well.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like Fire Emblem, where it's like, oh, it's the evil spooky dragon, blah.
Yeah.
Dragon people. That's exactly how it is whenever I'm playing Fire Emblem. One of those Punch and Judy and Punch little puppet. That's all that goes on in my head. There's nothing.
Yeah, half the time, like I said, I am a big, for as much as I'm shitting on them right now, I'm a big JRPG guy. I really do think that that's my genre of choice, but so often I just have to be like, yeah, all right, man. Like, anytime anyone talks, like, just, yeah, all right, whatever you say. Buddy.
That, or they get into the really, like, overly heady thing of, like, we're going to kill God. It's like, okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yawn. Been there, done that. I've saved the world enough times. Honestly, I've saved the world just so many times. 3 times before breakfast, and I want to do something else. I don't know, either save something small for once, like a dog maybe, or something, or I don't know, maybe you don't even have to save something. I don't know, just something a little different.
The I have an idea for one. I'm going to spoil it out right now. I wanted to do it be ever play what the heck is that? The Magic of Scheherazade. I know I've talked about it before.
I haven't played it,
but you're aware.
I would like to. Yes.
Okay. So think kind of like that, except for things I don't have the talent to program it like Zelda, but more of, there would be these random encounters, but more so the idea is that it's very branching, and that you're basically tasked with infiltrating a isolated kingdom that has just gone completely like dark.
Yeah.
And so you're like, so you've been tasked by your whatever, king, queen, the silly thoughts in your head, like to infiltrate it and figure out what's going on. Sure, there would be the battles and whatnot, but more than anything, you're going around trying to just figure out why this kingdom go dark.
Right.
And so you can you would be able to go, and you'd have to collect like different things and whatnot, and it's like trying to basically there's like a curse that is like put a stranglehold onto this kingdom, and it could be as simple as, oh, you go in, you find the curse, you figure out, oh well, these guys are just cursed, they did something bad, and well, we're just getting out, boom, game over, you figured it out, or you can actually try to like solve the curse or break the curse kind of thing.
Right.
So like there you go, that's a little bit different, kind of, sort of, maybe.
And I feel like, I mean, that would be a good way to contextualize the violence, instead of, you just get out into the field and there's 70 like blood wolves or whatever running around trying to kill you. It's like, all right, this is a game about like, I don't know, bringing this girl from here to there, but for some reason I'm being ransacked by bandits and wolves every step of the way. Well, I heard someone say, I don't know where this quote comes from, but they said, if your game is like 40 hours of killing monsters, your story better be about killing monsters. And I took that with me because I'm like, no, that makes sense. Like, I really do think I talk about, context, I think, a lot more than maybe a lot of people do. Like, we talked about it in the last episode about how, a lot of the games have scale for no reason, but I don't mind the big scale as long as your world, it's contextualized well in your world.
This is something that always bugged me, I guess, when it comes to JRPGs and stuff, is the overabundance of fighting, especially if it's very repetitive.
Right.
And it's like, it's, I don't mind their, like, and I get it, it's a game, so you need to have fun and whatnot. I guess, I think of, even though I love it to pieces, it really topples heavy into the fight. Dragon Quest. But I love Dragon Quest, A, because slimes are adorable, but also B, more importantly, I really love the small bits of the different stories of villages and stuff that Hori puts into it for the games.
Right.
Like,
and each village has its own customs and everything like that, and they all have their own, even like architecture. You can even tell in the newer ones, like this is very distinct from the other villages around.
So yeah, even though the most of them are generally the same sort of thing, like I love 5. Like 5, I know people don't really care for it in certain ways, especially because it is a very it's not a very heavy party game in the sense of like, oh, you're not getting a lot of human characters and stuff. You're traveling around with a lot of the Pokemans, Dragon Quest Pokemon kind of thing. It's more of, this is basically Dragon Quest Odyssey.
Right.
Kind of thing. It is, your main character is Odysseus, basically. You are going to this is going to be a lot of years kind of thing. And it was just really, really cool. And just, I'm not even going to talk about the movie, A, because I've not seen it, B, that plot twist about it is just really weird, but
yeah. It sure is.
Sure.
I've seen part of it, and then I think I fell asleep, and then just that's not like a measure of the quality of the film. I just that happens sometimes,
right?
But I just never got back to it. It's like not to get onto this now for too long, but it's like so devoted to the story, being exactly like beat for beat what Dragon Quest V story is up until that point, I believe. Because, like, I watched probably half of it, and it is just hitting it point for point for point. But the one place where a JRPG has an advantage is that they are very long. You know, that game, very long game.
Hmm.
And it really does give you the time to, like, a movie that's like an hour and a half, 2 hours might feel a little rushed if you're going over, decades of someone's life.
Hmm.
But that game, I think, handles that aspect really well. Like, it's like the perfect length for that to make it feel like, no, this is a very long, you know, a very large amount of time has passed.
And it can do things in ways that, um, like the movie wouldn't be able to do. Like
Yeah.
the different changes of the title for the character.
Yeah.
Like the last one is such a cool, like heartwarming thing. What his title ends up being for the main character, and you're like, oh, that's really great. After all of that, the just heartbreak and just struggle that he goes through, to have that, the do you know what the title is for that
No, I don't
character?
remember. I finished it, but I
Yeah,
wasn't see like I missed that. I
you're
wasn't even looking at those.
it's a hero's father.
Oh, okay.
Like, to me, that's just such a cool little bit that you don't get in a lot of different games,
Yeah.
and that you wouldn't even get in, especially with how that movie is,
Hmm.
with that plot twist. But it's going from like Pancras's son and just different things to yada yada. But the ending title that he's given is that one, as far as I'm aware, and I'm like, that's just such a great bit of the journey and everything, and it's
Right.
just, um I don't think five gets enough love for it in that way. It's because it gets overshadowed by four. A lot of people love four. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with four. It's just, and then it's like four, and then it just sort of peters out, and it's like, we don't even talk about six. Six is whatever. Dreams yawn, and then it's more like, seven's a little too long. Eight, we love eight. Four, eight. Can't wait for
Yeah.
12.
I think, and I have listened to too many episodes of video game podcasts. At least the stuff that I listen to, I think you might be surprised at how much people have come around on five.
Okay.
I think that is like seen now, I feel like, as the classic Dragon Quest. I do think that people generally tend to believe that if you're going to go back and play Dragon Quest, the ones that are worth playing are definitely five seems to be the one, no, pre 3D, we'll say.
Gotcha.
Five seems to be the one that everyone recommends.
Nice.
Tim Rogers is probably no small part of that because he's evangelized for five, but also I think that three to a lesser extent.
Mm.
Um, but I think that's a really good point that you made earlier about that being something that only games can do, like that title thing. I think those are the things that video games should try to lean into. To be, they don't have to be cinematic necessarily to tell good stories. They can do things like that are unique to their medium, because that's why I like video games, because they're not movies, because they're not, music. They include pieces of those mediums, but they're their own thing.
the it's it's those devils and the devil in the details that people want to laud things like Dark Souls, because it's they leave the breadcrumbs for stories for people to be like, oh, if they really want to go digging, they can piece together all this sort of stuff, which
Right.
is fine. But I feel like, yeah, like you said, it's like you can do so many other things for whatever reason. It's like, oh well, we got to get the whatever it is in place, and we just need to put the scaffolding in and everything, and then they just sort of. And I get it; it's a very arduous task, it's a very long task, but it just feels like
Right.
the engine runs out of steam, and it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, get this out. Whether it's because they need to, because of trying to make money, which
Hmm.
it gets into a whole bunch of squirrely stuff, or what have you, and it's just like, okay, we can't do this anymore.
Right.
It's just like, and it feels like, oh well, and that's where I feel like with Dragon Quest, Yeah, it can certainly peter out at the end with just, oh, well, you're taking out the bad guy. All right.
Hmm.
But all those quirky stories going on up until you finally take on the baddie really, really endear themselves to me. And
Right.
I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
and I think, and I mentioned this in the in the little comment for the topic and stuff, when I mentioned the think of Breath of the Wild,
Hmm.
a big difference that I find with like open world or sandbox or whatever, that makes it really hard to have a shared experience. And this is the thing with the story, right? With stories, unless you're doing a pick your own adventure book, a story is generally going to be the same.
Right.
And so when, say that joke that I said earlier, everybody's now heard that. That's the same joke that I've told coworkers earlier today, who
Right.
some just kind of shake their head and go, "What is wrong with you?" Some go, "Where? Why do you like?" I tell puns all the time, so sometimes I find them online. Sometimes I think of them in my head. Like, what was the one I had the other day? Something about like an evil wizard was complaining to his neighbor. Because
I
of a
don't know.
vamp.
That premise is a little suspect. I don't know. I don't know
But
if
it
I can believe that.
is he complaining to his neighbor because a vampire just
Yeah.
moved into the neighborhood. Just
Uh-huh.
would not stop complaining about it, and eventually got to the point where he's like, you know what, though, I may be an evil wizard, but I'm no necromancer.
Oh no. I hate that I like that. That's the thing that makes me the most upset is the shame that comes afterwards.
But sometimes I think of them up myself, and sometimes I look them up online, and then people are asking, "Where do these come from?" I'm like, it's the magic,
Very
magic of
valid question. I just want to talk.
But so, in sharing those sorts of things, though, it's not like that story is just really changing. You might add in little flourishes here and there, kind of thing,
Hmm.
but that through line is there. Same thing with playing a traditional JRPG like, say, Dragon Quest or
Right.
Final Fantasy. Even something like Final Fantasy Tactics starts to blur this a little bit. Breath of the Wild is one that I bring up because this I think was the game that this is another one of those old topics that I had from the first run with Rambling Weekly, is that Breath of the Wild allowed you to pretty much tackle the problems however you wanted.
Right.
So I've not played it, but outside of like 5-10 minutes. But the early area. There's like a frozen tundra area that you have to learn how to get through the cold somehow. From what
Hmm.
I remember, that allowed people to basically tackle that problem however they wanted.
Right.
However, that is not a shared experience. I feel.
What that game is it is a truly modern video game because it is a game made for the social media age. It's a game where you can discover something. I mean, it's the old schoolyard thing of the original, NES games, but in a very connected way,
Okay.
where people were, they are finding out weird ways to do things and discovering things and, shooting a boulder 1,000 miles across the world while standing on it and traveling really quickly. It might not be, it's not a shared thing in that we're all going to have this experience. But it is a shared thing in the way that, this thing gets posted on Twitter and then we all point and go, oh, wow, look at that thing that guy just did. And you might be content with that. Or you might say, oh, I want to do that. I want to give that a try. Something like that. So I do see it as a shared experience. I just see it in a different way, I guess, than we all experience the same thing in the comfort of our homes. Now we all experience the same thing through this surrogate on the internet. We all saw the same video is more like it. I mean, that can be as dark or as nice as, you want it to be. You can see it as a thing that fosters community, I suppose, or you can see it as a thing that is bad for that. I don't know.
Huh. No, I never really thought of it that way. I guess it's. I guess because there isn't necessarily the purpose of like, how to put it. There isn't a less of a strong arc. It's more of a like a communal thing. You get where I'm going. It's not like there's the one true method. There's
Right.
just a myriad of smaller methods. That's kind of where my brain goes. So in my head, the myriad of methods, it feels like there's less that you take the lesson. It's more of just trading stories at that point. So to
Right.
me, that feels less connected. I
Uh-huh.
guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
I guess that's where I would stand on that. Like I get like that's actually a really great point you made about it being more schoolyard ish. But I guess for myself, I think of schoolyard ish. I'm like, I really didn't have friends in elementary school, so
Right.
it was kind of
No, I
like,
get it. Yeah. And it's going to be, I suppose, a different. Yeah, it's a different experience because there's a difference between that bonding over a shared experience and exchanging a different story.
exactly,
And
yeah.
I think there's something to be said about both,
So,
personally.
yeah. Again, I guess I shouldn't internalize there being a greater value in one versus the other, and more that it is just a very different. Because that's the angle I'm looking at it, right? Is that
Right.
I'm thinking that a shared experience is much more of a stronger bond as opposed to, and maybe this is just more of my grumpiness towards kind of telling stories.
Right.
Stories don't want to you being told something as opposed to
Right, doing it. Yeah, I get it. I think it just comes down to, I mean, you certainly value the one thing over the other. And I think that's perfectly fine.
is it though?
I think it is. It
Well,
takes all kinds, right?
that's true. That's true. I guess yeah. I think of it as a group of friends doing something together, and then they
Right.
tell the one friend who wasn't able to come for whatever reason. That one friend is like that telling isn't going to like that other friend could have done something else entirely, and then they could trade the story. But that bond isn't necessarily not that it's not stronger or weaker. It just creates a different kind of element to it that yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess myself, I would argue that it doesn't make it stronger, but maybe that's because of just me myself thinking that just how I value things, it just doesn't quite sit as strongly. But that's I guess something I have to unpack. The there's a question I put into this where balancing between like laughter and serious and stuff. Is fun all we need in stories? Can you get by with just fun all the time? Can it always just be fun?
I think every once in a while you can have some fun. I think it can be maybe a little junk foody, you know what I mean? But I do think there's got to be room for play. I mean, and a lot of video games are are all about that. So you're not really you're not at a loss for the play element when it comes to when it comes to video games. I certainly don't go to 99% of them for for the story. So for me, play is most of what there is.
The to kind of like try to I don't know how to put this, because going with purpose of either whatever the intent is.
Hmm.
You know, there I feel like a lot of games, their intent isn't, when they're trying to tell a story, isn't necessarily to have fun, but there are some that I can think of, like God Hand, Katamari
Yeah.
Damacy. Those are two just kind of pop into my head of, oh, these are silly. This is fun.
Hmm.
Like, how, I just wonder how people tend not to be able to, like, make that leap. Like, it feels like it's kind of rarefied air. Am I wrong in thinking that?
What in like not being so self-serious, like just kind of being able to just enjoy a story, like just have
Yeah,
fun with
just
it,
have
or
fun with it. Yeah. At least more recently. It seems like we've skewed more and more away from that, or am I just not playing those games?
no, well, like so many tropes of older games, because those were both PS2 games, and while neither of them I don't think would have been like AAA, a nice little AA game could maybe punch up a little at the AAA space, maybe, if that makes any sense. Where a lot of that stuff has kind of trickled down to the indie game space. Like the Katamari of today is something like Untitled Goose Game, where
Ah,
it's like a
yeah.
smaller little, like a tinier project, and it was fairly popular for what it was. Probably even a little more popular than Katamari. But these games aren't. These games are never going to be massive because, as I keep saying, the framework of a AAA game is a very narrow thing.
And that, and the evanescence of it as well. It's just kind of, I bring up Katamari, but like, is that really something that people people are like, yes, the story of Katamari Damacy, of how
No,
King of the
probably
Universe
not.
screwed up everything, so you're rolling up stuff to make stars again. Sure, okay, all right, yeah. Or Loco Roco or Patapon.
Yeah,
Not really. Same thing with Untitled Goose Game. It's more of just the concept and less about.
right.
Well,
We talked about purpose earlier, and I mean, I think I do believe it's perfectly fine for that to be the purpose. Even just being silly, I'm fine with that.
I guess I guess then you have to balance that purpose with the and the intent with the time taken, and that's such a hard thing to go with as well, right?
Right.
Because I think of writing, or I know of people who maybe work on music and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you're doing this, but you cannot expect other people to have an interest in it. I'm grateful that there have been people who have bought and read that monstrosity of an evil book that is Sutraba. I mean, like I warned it
Yeah,
with my words. I warned it in the book itself. It's an ugly book.
I might not have gotten far, but I have read the poem at the beginning of it.
But I mean, it just in the sense of thinking of like the team that put together Damashi, the people who put together, was it one or two people who did Untitled Goose Game?
I would assume that couldn't have been a big team. A little
Like,
handful, probably.
I guess what I'm getting at is more of the on the other side of it, right? Is that okay? The receiving end of a story or whatnot, or like a piece of work, but on the other end is like you have to balance the what are you saying, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that nobody may listen.
Right.
Like you could have the most truest whatever, maybe it is the most perfectest story in the universe, and nobody may listen.
Right.
And then like how do you like on the back end of it, how do you grapple with the purpose then, right? Is like do you how do you feel then if you do something that you're like, I have this thing and nobody cares?
I guess you just have to decide how much that matters to you. You know, how much of the reason you're doing it, I suppose, is for that. I think most people would probably tell you, unless they're like a studio musician or something. Most artists would probably tell you that they're creating like for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they might even think that, but when it finally comes time to when the NPD company or whatever is tallying up the sales, it might the reaction might tell a different story. But I suppose that's just something that every artist has got to decide for themselves.
Yeah, because I know that's something that I've certainly grappled with myself for it, is that it's like one of it's like, oh well, writing it eventually is just what I came to as an answer is that it's just, for me, writing is cathartic. It gets these stories out of my head so I no longer have to think about them.
Right.
And that's the end.
And I think and as long as you're content with that, I mean, that seems like a perfectly fine way to go about it. Not everyone's gonna be Stephen King. Only one of us can be Stephen King.
Right. And yeah, I could never. Sure, that'd be swell to just churn out book after book after book, but it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I certainly have a bunch of story ideas in my head, but I'm not going to sit there and go, by golly gee, everybody best buy books from me.
Right.
Because it's like, because it just sort of, I don't know. It is.
There's an entitlement that comes along with that.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Don't want that. That, or in the sense of, you get some people who are really, really pushy about that sort of thing, to where it's like, hey,
like and subscribe.
Well, that, or just in general, where it's just like, I've made this thing, now enjoy it. And it's like, I don't have fucking time for that. Like, I ain't gonna fault you for like, you could have read three lines from it for all I know. I'm not gonna fault you, nor am I gonna badger you to be like, why haven't you read my book?
Right.
What the hell, Slade? Come on.
Well, nothing's worse than a hover. Like that's just awful. Like you don't want someone over your shoulder like doing that. Like not with something so frivolous. Like no offense, I'm not trying to say like, oh, nothing frivolous, like a story my friend wrote. Ugh, I'm not saying that, but
years and you're gonna say it's frivolous.
I just called it frivolous. Yeah, I'm
trample it all over.
Horrible. Well, this has been my last episode of Rambling Weekly, everyone.
I'll see you in hell, Slade.
It's been real. Yep. Be there with bells on. But oh man, I don't even know where I was. I don't know, somewhere.
Just in the something so frivolous about how somebody spends their time, maybe.
Sure. Heck yeah, man. That sounds like something I'd say. Anyway, Yeah, books. Wow, that was I threw all the oxygen right out of the awful. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Say something good.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I think with purpose, it is it's a multi-layered thing, right? Not only do you have the purpose of what the story is, but you have
Right.
to have the purpose of that person, the
Right.
audience. I think that's where you kind of come in with the frivolous nature of trying to control
Hmm.
somebody else's purpose.
Oh, something I was going to say
Okay.
with that sense of, against that sense of entitlement.
Hmm.
Obviously, I feel like, when you think that, oh, everyone should just enjoy this thing I'm creating. Well, why wouldn't they? I created it, why isn't everyone enjoying it? I feel like the better way of going about it might just be, I'm just gonna put this thing out there, and if anyone enjoys it, that will be a blessing, because at that point, well, I mean, I guess like I just said, is every person who interacts with your content, your stories, whatever, it's a positive. It is kind of a blessing. Like, these people do not have to spend their time
Hmm.
interfacing with the thing that you have created, and yet they're choosing to do so. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I am very much of that mindset with
Yeah.
it's certainly I write something if there is even just one person. It could be one person after I'm long since gone and dead. And they find it, pick it up and they're like, "Oh, as long as they don't read it and turn into a psycho,
Right.
you know, cool. If you turn into a psycho, I don't know you." Like
Right. Well, there's a little risk management that goes in. You release something like this. I mean, what can you do
I mean, to
once
be
it's
fair,
out
that
there?
dude didn't. That dude, what was the one who read Catcher in the Rye? Was that the one who shot Lennon? Or is
Oh, I don't know.
there's yeah, like, and I've read Catcher in the Rye. The only
Yeah.
person I wanted to shoot was myself after reading that. Like, I, I certainly didn't really get anything out of it, but people are going to take whatever out of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
But
guess
that
that's
was a
also
guy whose brain was looking for a reason to do something fucked up anyway, probably. So there's got to be a little of that in there.
well, right. Well, that's what I was going to say is that like you can, you know, in really rolling it back to that should a story have purpose, people will make a purpose for
Right.
anything. So, you could just talk about going to freaking 7-Eleven and getting one of those, what are the Slurpee things? What's
Oh,
it?
I
Slushy.
think it is just called a. Okay.
Like it might be a Slurpee, but like the
Give yourself
slushy
a big gulp.
big gulp that's like super duper cheap, and somebody could hear that and then turn that in something entirely different about.
If, like, half of the internet has anything to do with it, I mean, that'll become like you can like rally Nazis with shit like
Jeez.
that by talking about some and 7-Eleven will become like a weird, like, crazy dog whistle for like political freak. I don't know. I mean, it's a weird place on here. People will take it how they want to take it.
Right. Well, and that's that gets me back to my whole. People really need to make the internet be the silly place again.
Yeah.
It is not serious business. We seriously
Yeah.
had jokes about this all throughout the aughts and.
Hmm.
But I guess that's what the internet is. It's serious business. So
There was a few years of Twitter isn't real, guys. Twitter isn't real, and I kind of wish we could go back to that time. I wish it wasn't real, because now it's more real than ever, apparently. But we have, like, the crown prince of being a gosh darn fool all of the fucking time, with his, like you said earlier, his Doge whatever memes all over, putting them, on the site's logo for, like, this is a clown show, and his group of cronies takes it, like, more seriously than anyone.
oh, what's the one meme of oh, I've never played them, but the Is it Miles? There's like from what's the Ace Detective? Is that what that?
Miles Edgeworth.
Yeah, it was like
those
you're
Ace
not the
Attorney spinoffs.
yeah yeah the Ace Attorney. You're not the clown. You're the whole circus.
Oh yeah, yes.
Something like that. It's pretty much yeah. It is a circus, and
That man is the whole circus.
yeah, and I guess
boy.
it is the fun of life and living is that somehow we need to parse out a purpose, or maybe not. Maybe we don't need to do that at all. Maybe that's the big joke, and we're just trying to. But I would argue that that is part of the problem is that everybody wants to turn it into a joke, and I guess if that's the intent you want to live by, well, I mean, that's what that's what Cards Life's going to give you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm just one person. Maybe I'm completely wrong in thinking that.
Well, the fact that you can admit that puts you on a better footing than many people. Maybe I could be wrong is probably a statement that a lot of other people could stand to make every once in a while.
You would think, but I don't know. I get enough wrong to go, yeah, I can sit there and be like, yeah, I'm probably off on this. I make enough mistakes.
Yeah.
And I know it is really hard to admit that, but
But it gets easier.
it does. But, yeah, is there any other little, not little, but any other things you want to add to this, or?
I don't think so. I'm shocked that it went as well as it did. To be completely honest with you, I think that was all right.
We're gonna put that as the the catch for the
Yeah.
put it in the little descriptor for it. It went all right.
The back of the box quote, as they say.
Right. Well, we'll take a break and then get to this quote, and then we'll be on our merry way.
Sounds good.
All right. Welcome back. That tune there is Yurei Kyakusen no Jikyu wo Koeta Tabi, or Interdimensional Voyage of a Ghostly Passenger Ship. I absolutely adore this piece. This is probably my favorite out of the album. I just love how it starts with that chip tune, that little melody, and it goes hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's Dragon Questy in like towards the very beginning in a way. You know, a little bit. Almost like did I use the word? I think I already hate myself for this. I think I used the term Renaissance-y earlier. I don't know if that's when you and I were talking, but
you did use it, but I don't know if it was during recording or not.
Yeah, well now it is. So I guess neoclassical would be a better thing to say. This I get very neoclassical vibes from this the chip tunes in this one.
Okay. Yeah,
Whatever
it's
that
just
means.
it goes hard. Like it's
It does.
you're kind of like, oh, there's not really too much, and then kind of doesn't taper off, but it. I don't know how to put that. That has that dun 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 dun. I don't know how to. They're not like stabs, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about it that it's not really giving you too much breathing room, but it's enough to be like, okay, all right, we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Just good, delicious, fantastic. But yeah, so quote time. Ready for this quote?
Oh, of course.
So this is from. I'm gonna bring where this is. Okay, just so I have this correctly. This is from a Richard Phillips Feynman, who is an American theoretical physicist known for his work in the path of integral formulation of quantum mechanics. Stuff that I'm way too stupid to understand. But I really like this quote. And that quote is, I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. I have approximate answers and possible beliefs and different degrees of uncertainty about different things, but I am not absolutely sure of anything. And there are many things I do not know anything about, such as whether it means anything to ask why we're here. I don't have to know an answer. I don't feel frightened not knowing things by being lost in a mysterious universe without any purpose, which is the way it really is as far as I can tell.
It's kind of beautiful.
I really like it. And that's kind of my mindset. Like, I know B. Clark and I talked a little bit about it with like death and stuff, and I know we kind of briefly talked a little bit before recording and stuff. Like, when it comes to death, when it comes to the what is beyond the veil of living, and like getting that, like I don't really. It's not. I don't know. I don't want to say I don't care, because I know there are people who are very interested in trying to figure that out. It's just not a question I find interesting.
Right.
Because we're here in this moment. Why not either enjoy it, but also, I don't want to say like live it up, but like I guess enjoy the what this life is, and not really think about so much the why. Like
you're gonna find out what's out there in 80 years or whatever, whether you spend that time worrying about it or not. Over the course of your life. So
right.
So enjoy it. Live a little.
Right. Well, that's
Don't worry.
It's the I guess the balance of enjoying, but also, like, for me, my enjoyment comes from the doing kind of thing. I like to have the writing stuff, to have certain goals and stuff that I wish to accomplish. And then some people are not like that. Some people are just very like my parents are very hippie, sort of just kind of flow by the breeze.
Right.
And that's their way of going through life, and not going to denigrate that nor say that one way is better than the other. It's just more of how to put it, how my values of that line up versus that's just very, very different. And to say, oh well, I know that way is wrong, no, perhaps I have it all wrong. And I don't know any better.
Well, that's the thing, is when nothing has any objective value in that way, this whatever purposeless universe he talks about. I mean, that leaves all kind of room for you to attach your own subjective value onto these things. And I mean, that's what you value. You value the work, getting your shit done. That's great.
Or the what's the some? How did I hear somebody explain life? Life is the life doesn't have one correct answer. It has infinite correct answers.
Right.
So for I know just for myself that the I've certainly made a lot of wrong answers for different choices in my life, but
Right.
I'm at least going to strive for what I think is the correct answer, and
Right.
what I think is the correct answer. Other people are going to go, "What the? No, absolutely not." Pass. And that is the beauty of it, is that we all get to have our own purposes and purposes, and as long as it's not malicious or what have you, I think we can all kind of get
Right.
along in
And
that
that's
regard.
that's why I don't that's why I don't get the nihilists so much. Is like I don't know, I see things not having a purpose, not in a bad way, but in like in a freeing way.
Mm.
More so. Like it doesn't have to be a horrible negative thing, you know.
Well, that's where the bad thing of the dank means, right? Well, that's like the first step. First step is to be like, oh, well, they're like after a long enough understanding of time, what your choices are meaningless. And it's like, okay, well, then I am going to build towards there being meaning, kind of thing.
Right.
And
Yes.
but people don't go that route. They just go, well, if it's meaningless, then why do anything? And it's like, well, okay, if that's the choice, if that's the answer you've come to, I part of my heart's very sad and pities you, but in the same hand,
Right.
like if you are comfortable with that, if that is the answer you've come to, then okay, embrace it, and if it doesn't work out for you, well, hopefully you'll find a better answer,
Right.
or an answer that propels you to do what have you. So
Have a nice life.
have a nice life, because it's not going to be in mine. I'm out. Peace. Oh, gracious. Oh, is there anything you'd like to add before kind of wrapping this up?
No, I don't think so. It seemed like a pretty good way to wrap it up to me.
All right. It works for me. I guess we'll mention this before kind of closing it out. The ending tune is Mishitsu ni Hanataba wo, which is like flowers for the sealed room.
Okay.
Yeah, I like this as an outro tune. There's just something about it that really, how to put it. I don't know how to put it.
I realize now
Uh-huh.
that I was listening to the wrong song last time when I was saying that chiptune part sounded kind of neoclassical. I meant the one and the fourth one, so now I feel really silly.
Wow.
So oops,
At least you're
my
honest.
bad. I was
I
supposed to be listening to four, and I was listening to nine. Oops.
I appreciate the honesty. I mean, I could. I guess when you said it sounded like Dragon Quest, I was like, it was a little. That's some aggressive Dragon Quest music, but now thinking about it, but I could see nine fitting a little bit more.
Yeah. So yeah, that was oops. So yes, nine was the one I was talking about earlier. So I'm not I'm not that dumb, just confused.
It's all right. I appreciate you being open and honest about that.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's very low stakes. So
Well, I mean, the stakes are all on yourself, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like you could just lied about it. I mean, you're the only one that has to deal with it, not me.
right.
So I guess then, with that, anything about the previous song you want to throw out there, and we just because I'm not editing it to switch it around, but
That's fine. Shit's tight, man.
there you go. I'll add that to the
There we go.
oh,
It rips.
It rips and tears.
And other I don't know. Platitudes.
It's dope.
Yeah, it rules so hard.
So yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you, Slade, for joining me. Especially
Thanks for
such a
having me.
quick turnaround. You're just on like a few episodes ago.
Yeah, I know that's. I think that's a record, right?
Oh yeah, it didn't take too much there, but yes, you now have the record for the quickest turnaround.
Yeah, outside of you,
I
he's
guess.
on every episode.
I mean, there'll be one maybe where somebody else does it, and I don't. Just be like, so somebody else do this instead of me.
Yeah, delegate
Delegated to
like a
someone.
good leader.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's how that works.
All right.
But yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for picking the topic, and
Oh, no problem at all. Thanks for writing it.
yeah, all right, and everybody else, thanks for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If not, write me angry notes or emails or what have you. I mean, do your worst. Or do your best. Maybe you really love this. Maybe you have something to add to it. I hope so, because, I mean, do stories really have purpose? Or should they? Maybe, question you have
Who
to answer
knows?
yourself. Who knows?
That's the overall. That's the TLDR on this one. Who knows, man?
Who knows? I will add that to the box. Who knows? So, thanks for listening. Enjoy your day, weekday, weekend, everything in between. And, yeah. Catch you later. Bye.
See ya.